Welcome to Overwatch. This time we'll be tiredly talking through a million different things and cover pretty much the entire of Overwatch. Hi everyone, I'm one amongst many and I just came back from Blizzard's press event. Some of you might have seen me posting on the Overwatch subreddit already, talking about a few of the things I've seen and answering questions. What this video is going to be is just me talking through my experience, answering a few questions that seem to pop up every now and again, giving a brief account of each character, and yeah, just talking about the entire thing that happened, because I know you guys want to know. So let's talk. Where to begin? First of all, let's just begin with disclosure, because I think that's fair enough. Blizzard flew me out there and paid for my hotel. So they paid for the travel, hotel, and some food while staying out there. I was basically their guest. So, you know, take that as it is. Let's have full disclosure with this. So, you know, some sort of transaction is kind of taking place where they've treated me very, very nicely. I've got to say, the Blizzard guys are just a treat to talk to. Their enthusiasm just burns through. And the developers that we spoke to and we had a chance to play around with, they were so willing to share and talk and listen to what we had to say. It was a fantastic experience if anyone from Blizzard listens to this, and I enjoyed every moment of it. It was worth spending, you know, an entire day out of 4 days on a plane or traveling. Where to begin? Well, let's begin by running through some of the play experiences I have had. And we're going to do this in kind of a structured way and then holistically try and look at everything and look at the game as an overall shape and answer and address some of the questions that have been popping up time and time again. So all I'm going to do is run through the hero list. Now, obviously, a few things I won't be able to talk about. I will have a video prepared for after the PAX announcements. Just to cover a few things that is going on with that. All I can say is keep your eyes on PAX. There's going to be some stuff there that is going to blow your friggin' minds. I was really hyped. Really hyped. I can't wait. But let's begin, and let's begin from the top. Let's begin with Tracer. I had a chance to play Tracer a few times, and I had a chance to see a lot of Tracer being played. I think the thing I noticed most of all was a lot of the Team Fortress 2 guys, especially, were drawn to Tracer very, very quickly. She's very easy to kind of pick up and play if you've got a lot of first-person shooter experience, and she can kill things incredibly fast. Tracer is a very, very versatile character who can basically just dive behind enemy lines. This isn't kind of like Team Fortress 2, because there's only 6 versus 6, and I'm aware that the people involved in Pro TF2 will be aware of this, but the people who play it more casually, you're used to the idea of having these very, very impenetrable choke points, rather. You know, it's very, very difficult to get behind an engineer nest. In Overwatch, there's a lot more fluidity in moving through various choke areas. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a few sort of narrow corridor, well, not even corridor sort of areas, but just focus points for where fighting is going to happen. But even then, Tracer can get through it. Tracer is incredibly agile. She's a massive pain in the ass to fight against because she can just zip around and you will have so much trouble keeping track of where she is at any one time. You have to be really on the ball when fighting her, and you have to be prepared to constantly be shifting your viewpoint and then changing to fight her as she was 3 seconds ago. She's very easy to play in terms of just picking up and playing her, but her aiming and her damage will only really kick in if you can actually aim and if you can get close. I was happy to see a lot of the things that I was talking about in my Tracer video do still hold true. That said, I am going to redo the Tracer video and redo the Tracer content just in light of what I've seen and what I've played. A big thing about Tracer, also talking to some of the developers, is that a good Tracer player can really make or break the game. She is very, very powerful if given support, and one thing that one of the developers was telling me about was you can build a team around a kind of carry Tracer, where you give her shields and armor, and then she can use that and sort of do the time reset and get all that shield and armor back and become very, very difficult to kill and very, very difficult to deal with. Now, the counter to Tracer that I noticed is Torbjorn. Let's try and say this right. What I noticed was Tracer has an excellent tool in her Pulse Bomb. The Pulse Bomb is crucial for breaking sieges and breaking through sort of defended positions. The Pulse Bomb will also be talked about later when we talk about Symetra, because the Pulse Bomb teleporter relationship is one that's going to be, I think, very, very key. So let's get back to Torbjorn and how he handles with Tracer, because what will happen is you will build a turret, and the turret will basically block Tracer from doing much. It will, instantly swivel. It has a little bit of tracking time to try and aim at people, a little bit like the sentries in Team Fortress 2, but it will kill her. She can't really engage it directly. What she can do is leap out, put a pulse bomb on it, and rewind, and just get out of there, and the sentry is done. But Torbjorn can build sentries faster than Tracer can destroy them with pulse bomb, and that's really the key here. You end up with a kind of ebb and flow where Torbjorn will get his turret up and then sort of max it out fairly quickly, especially if he has his ultimate and he's doing damage himself and you want to be doing that as Torbjorn. Then he's going to get his turret maxed, and that's going to absolutely tear people apart. Now let's talk about Torbjorn, because I've already been talking about him a lot. I haven't actually done my full video on him yet. Some of it is prepared, but I haven't fully edited that together. Overall impressions of Torbjorn, he's a lot more mobile than the engineer, and what I mean by that is you want to be moving around and engaging where you can with him. Because you don't have a dispenser, you can't turtle. You have to go out and find where the fighting happens to collect scrap, to bring it back, and to build your turret up. And when you get a level 3 turret, you then want to be finding your team, giving them extra armor where you can, and sort of pushing that way. His weapon, it's not the most accurate thing in the world. It does shoot straight, but it has an arc to it. It does a lot of damage. It's very, very effective when you can land hits with it. Now that's kind of hard to do, but it's very worth doing. His ultimate is also extremely functional, and hey, my computer's been quiet, that's nice. His ultimate is very, very functional. Basically, it makes him build turrets incredibly quickly, repair them incredibly quickly, gives him a load of armor, makes him very, very difficult to kill. It's the greatest ability for when the enemy team is launching in, you activate Molten Core, and you can hold that sentry for as long as you can. Unless Tracer drops a pulse bomb on it. And now you can start to see, okay, now we have counterplay, where Torbjorn can push Tracer back, but Tracer can do something about it. And we'll talk about counterplay a lot more later when we get into a holistic overview. A character that I played the most was Widowmaker. And Widowmaker plays a little bit different than Team Fortress 2 Sniper. So her uptime when you bring up the scope isn't as quick. There's a little bit of delay in the animation, and also her firing rate is way faster. She's actually semi-automatic, but because of the charge mechanic, you can't spam shots. If you spam shots, I notice you do so little damage that it's not really worth it. You want to hold on for that second or two, have that little bit of patience, and then just nail people in the head. And that's by far the most effective way I had of playing her. Widowmaker is actually excellent at taking out Pharah, at least inexperienced Pharahs, because they like to float, and floating targets are quite slow. Also, her leap up is somewhat of a predictable arc. You kind of know where she's going to go when she does that, so you can sort of follow the arc up and you'll know about where she's going to land. I had a great time playing Widowmaker. One of the fond memories I have is a developer stood behind me and commenting, you're doing really well with this, you're doing really well with this, and look, your ultimate's almost back up the instant it almost expired. What I noticed was a good Widowmaker, if you're hitting targets, your ultimate will have an uptime of about 50-60%, and that will feed your team so much information. So you instantly have this extra team play built into Widowmaker that other snipers just don't have. It's almost like, free spotting in Battlefield, or just being more useful than the Team Fortress 2 sniper often is in a pub Team Fortress 2 server. Let's move on to probably another really popular character, and I'll link this with another character afterwards, is Pharah. Pharah was played a lot, and she's played a lot for a good reason. She's the direct assault, she's the one who's going to deal a lot of damage, and she was a lot of fun to play. She's quite squishy, but the launch up sends you up very, very quickly, and it serves as a nice double jump. It feels a little bit different than rocket jumping, although it serves a similar purpose. It will basically launch you to somewhere where the enemy hopefully wasn't expecting you to go. So you'll be fighting, and suddenly you're in the sky really quickly. You launch upwards. It's also very, very good at getting past directional shields. So Reinhardt and Bastion both have directional shields. Pharah can get above those, and it takes a little bit of time for your enemy to react to where you are. So it lets you get past that and deal some damage. Now Pharah really comes into her own when you're playing as Mercy. One of the best rounds and probably the highest scoring round I had of the evening was playing as Mercy. And I am someone who does not like playing Medic in Team Fortress 2. I find it a little bit dull. I'm aware they have a really crucial role in the team. They can decide a lot of when the team ebbs and flows. But I don't like it. I just don't like having, following someone around, healing them constantly, and just spamming left clicks on people. Mercy's very different. Because you don't have overheal, and because you don't play entirely around the uber charge, you have so many more decisions to make. You're constantly deciding, am I damage amping the right person? Do I need to go and heal this person? Do I need to move back and heal this person? And her mobility is insanely fun. The shift to glide towards people, it comes off cooldown so fast, it lets you zip all around the team, providing support to everyone who needs it constantly. Anytime I was in trouble, if I was supporting a Farah, which I often was, I had a great round where I was supporting, I think it was Yogscast Duncan and Star, a very prominent Team Fortress 2 sort of streamer and player. Supporting them, playing Farah, damage amping both of them, launching between them pretty frequently, and just pumping healing and damage into them. And I could just constantly dive between, and when Farah launches up, you follow her, and you are much safer in the air when you do, because the enemy's just not expecting it. Anytime I was in danger, I could turn around, look to the back line, find the person furthest back, and just zip straight to them safely. I had a really good round playing Mercy. I had a surprising amount of fun for a character that I thought I wouldn't honestly like. So let's move on to another very popular character, Bastion. Bastion, I notice, is very tactical, and no one plays tactical Bastion like Jesse Cox. Jesse Cox is a monster on Bastion. He is a sneaky, devious little bastard. I had a great time playing against him when he was playing Bastion, because he liked to find places where you wouldn't expect a Bastion, and suddenly you walk past an area and you've got a million minigun bullets in your back. And by far the fondest memory I have of the event, and I've told this to a few people, is when I walked out of the spawn as Reinhardt, got murdered by Bastion's minigun that came from behind me. He's just tucked around a little corner next to a cliff, and I turned around and asked the dev, what would happen if I charged him? And the dev said, try it. And I did. And Jesse and I both tumbled right off the cliff to our doom, and it was hilarious. It was beautiful. Playing Bastion myself, I notice he's very, very tactical, or rather very, very strategic. You're constantly thinking, am I in the right place? Where do I need to be? Should I shift around? I think one of the best ways to play Bastion is to get a few kills, but then move. Because when the enemy expects you, and when the enemy knows where you are, you're going to get drilled. You're going to get drilled fairly quickly. While the team can protect you and provide some protection, occasionally moving around, it's a bit like playing a good sniper in Team Fortress 2. You don't always want to be in the same spot, because then the enemy's going to focus their efforts on you, especially if you're a good sniper. You want to occasionally move around, find another place to snipe from, adjust your position so you aren't getting countered. And that's kind of what you should be thinking about as Bastion. Are the enemy focusing very hard on me? Am I going to go down the next push they do? Should I consider adjusting my position to somewhere safer where I've already denied the area? The enemy team's afraid to move into this location, so perhaps I should move. And that's a very, very strong way of playing Bastion, I think. Another popular character, another character that's very well liked and I had fun playing as, was Reaper. Reaper's very interesting to play as. He's very, very meaty in terms of, engaging people one-on-one. I don't think anyone can really beat him in a straight one-on-one battle, at least anyone who isn't a tank. The tanks, I think, might even struggle. And especially with his Wraith form escape, you can do quite a lot with Reaper. But by far the best times I had with Reaper was doing exactly what I was saying in the video. Finding a way to teleport somewhere where the enemy isn't quite expecting you, and launching and engaging them in 1v1 fights, or engaging them in unfavourable battles for them, and basically picking and choosing. Anytime you're in a fight where you don't think you can win, then you Wraith form and slip away in the shadows. Also, an interesting fact, Reaper's passive that gives him healing when he kills an enemy is very useful for someone who's not aware of how strong that healing was. It is absolutely essential to be picking up the health orbs that people drop when they die to a Reaper. You basically want to be snatching those up as fast as you can. Let's talk tanks, because I've talked tanks for a moment, and let's talk Reinhardt, because I played Reinhardt quite a lot. And I know Star, for example, I think he was really gravitating towards Reinhardt towards the end of the night, so he might have some really good opinions on that. I recommend trying to find out if he's posted anything. Reinhardt's a meaty bastard. He's very, very useful, especially on payload maps, with just pushing that cart and keeping your team protected. You have a real feel of value when you have like a Farah and a Symetra sort of hiding behind you, pinging away, dealing all the damage they need to and pushing the cart, and then when anyone gets close to you, the hammer does a huge amount of damage, and the charge is very, very useful. There is a small delay on launching the charge, so you do have to be careful, because to do it you have to drop your shield, and that can mean that you can get, made into mincemeat, unfortunately, but Reinhardt's usually tanky enough to endure that for a moment or two. Let's try that sentence again. To endure that for a moment or two. In terms of the other tank, Winston really comes into his own with his mobility. Winston can leap around amongst the team and leap around and really get disruptive in the enemy team. He's very good at getting into people's faces, and his ultimate, where he just sort of turns on the juice and gets full health again and gets 1,000 hit points and starts knocking people around, is amazing for area denial, pushing people away from objectives, and is amazing for just clearing out annoying enemy positions. He's very, very difficult to remove, and he's also he's got a lot of very good tactical options when deploying his little bubble shield. You can place it sort of between you and the enemy, and the shield will still block projectiles. You can also place it over enemies, and they can't shoot out of the shield. So that's kind of an interesting thing that we saw happen occasionally. Hanzo is an interesting one. He had varying levels of sort of either killing a lot of people or not doing much. It really sort of depends on how you're playing and how well you're playing. He's a more useful version of a Huntsman Sniper, a lot more useful version. One of the key things is his sensor arrow. Let me get the official name for that up. But basically the arrow that deploys into a sensor that lets you see where enemies are, that positional scouting is incredibly useful. Sonic arrow is the technical name. The scatter arrow is also very, very useful for dealing a lot of damage to a lot of people if they're all sort of carrying behind corners. It's a great way to remove Bastion, for example. His ultimate, Dragon Strike, is sort of in a nebulous place at the moment. It is quite powerful when it hits, and it will remove enemies that it hits, but even the devs admitted that they need to still do some tweaking on that to make sure it's both satisfying but predictable and has counterplay options. You don't just want Dragon Strike firing and absolutely ruining a defense, but you don't want it to be useless and not do much. So that's still in kind of a nebulous position, I'd say. Next up would be Symetra. Symetra is honestly probably the most important character in an offensive team. Symetra is in a very odd position because the teleporter is incredibly powerful. It's going to be a very, very key tool for any offensive team, and I imagine, at least in the early days, there will be a very concerted, a very focused metagame on getting the teleporter up, defending it, and for the enemy team to remove it. By far the most effective way to remove it is Tracer. By sending into the backline with a pulse bomb up, you can instantly remove the teleporter. Of course, that means you can't use the pulse bomb to kill people, but the teleporter is going to be a vital objective to remove for any defending team. You really want that thing gone. One thing that we did notice, or at least I noticed, was when one of the Blizzard devs was playing as Symetra, he did a very clever thing of being fairly aggressive with his sentry turret placement, and he was supporting the team, and then the moment he had his teleporter up, he focused full time on defending his teleporter and basically changed his turrets to help him do that. Another important thing about Symetra is that the charge shot she can do, one, deals a huge amount of damage. We kind of knew this beforehand. If you didn't, then enjoy that fact. It absolutely murders people, but it's also very, very slow moving. But the key fact about it is that it penetrates through shields. This makes it a great Bastion removal tool. It means that basically Bastion can't dodge it very quickly. He's not going to get out of the way. It's going to go right through his shields and probably kill him if it's full charge. Symetra is a great asset for removing entrenched positions. You fire a few of those shots down that are charged up and you can really do some work. And last but no means least is Zenyatta, my most recent video. Zenyatta is... he's very, very effective at what he does. One of the things that I saw a good Zenyatta doing was constantly throwing out that orb of discord, and you can use that as almost like a hunter's mark, for example. You can use it to pinpoint targets and use Zenyatta as a real shot calling character. Use him to finish people off quickly and keep firing off and just kill and go. It's good times. His ultimate is definitely a playmaker. It's a very, very good way of pushing and doing a lot of work and really sort of, making a team incredibly difficult to deal with. A good Zenyatta ultimate will just change the game. It's really, really powerful and well worth using. So let's talk holistic, let's talk the game overall and my impressions overall. One of the big misconceptions I actually had was that when you died you lost your charge for the ultimate, but it actually endures through death. This is very, very important. It means that you are going to get an ultimate at some point. As long as you're doing damage, as long as you're helping, the ultimate is going to be up. It's easier for some characters than others to build it up. For example, Mercy can actually build up her ultimate relatively quickly. She can do quite a lot with it as well. It's more powerful than you think it is, just because there's so few people on each team. It's very rare you're going to have an instance of having a defensive position so strong that they can kill people again instantly. People are a little bit more moved about, people are constantly sort of trying to flank each other. It could just be the fact that we were inexperienced, but it's better than you think it is. It's better than a lot of people think it is. Another big thing I noticed is the power level of abilities. The game doesn't play quite like a traditional first-person shooter. It plays quite differently, and in a good way. It's not gimmicky, it's not silly, it's not luck-based. It's just that each character has a few more options than you'd expect from a normal first-person shooter. And what I mean by that is, one of the things I kept seeing when people were asking questions, especially about Mercy, is how does she compare to the medic? Is she going to be as essential as the medic? And the answer is no. But the answer is no for a simple reason. In Team Fortress 2, the medic's uber charge is basically the one superpower ability that the game has. You try and build everything around the uber charge and use it to counter push and use it to push and use it to do all sorts of interesting things. In Overwatch, you have way more options to work around. You can work around a good Reaper Death Blossom. You can work around a good Pharah Barrage. You can work around Mercy's Resurrection. You can work around Widowmaker giving you vision of everyone. You can work around Tracer taking out an important position with a pulse bomb. You have so many more things to sort of play around and use to make your team stronger. Now, the same is true for the enemy team. So you're constantly trying to keep track of, okay, what have they used? What have they got coming in the pipeline? Is this Pharah going to launch into the air and slaughter my entire team? Or is she, just going to die? And it makes the game play very differently. The game itself there's nothing else quite like it, and it really does have that almost MOBA feel. And I know some people, instantly sort of revolt at that idea, but the potential for team play is huge. It's absolutely huge. The way that abilities can sync, and the way that you can support each other, and then the way you can counter other teams' abilities and other teams' attempts to do things by using various abilities, such as Pharah's Concussive Blast, which can knock people around, such as Winston putting his shields up, such as people doing all sorts of interesting things to counter the enemy's coordination. There's potential. There's huge potential with the way that the abilities sync together, the way that everything can kind of come together as a whole and really make team play worthwhile. One of the things that happened at the event was that a lot of group of Team Fortress 2 players and streamers came together and played against the Blizzard development team. A hand-picked team of Blizzard devs. There were Blizzard devs all over the event, but this was, some of their best. And it was a slaughter. It wasn't even close. The Blizzard team demolished them. And I saw the Reddit thread afterwards where we talked about this a little bit. And, someone said, oh, was it gimmicky? Was it luck-based? Was it, like crits and stuff like that? And no. Overwatch has nothing like crits. There's nothing random that I can think of in the game. It was just focused team play. And it has that element of a MOBA where you have a good team that are working together, that are coordinated, that are making things happen and supporting each other in specific ways that really sets the game apart from a standard first-person shooter. It does take some of the onus off individual skill on some of the classes, but that's fine. It works for the game. It really does. And let's start addressing questions. And the one question that I've seen again and again and again is, what do you think of the competitive potential? What I'm hoping you're seeing on the screen now, and I might have shown it before already, because I have no idea what video I'm going to put to this, by the way, so enjoy whatever's there, is a group of people watching this Team Fortress 2 against Overwatch show match, is watching these people play, and people were constantly talking about things that were happening. People were discussing, oh, that looks interesting, that looks good, that's a smart move, oh my god, I think the guy's name was Josh, who was playing a sniper, was like on a 20 kill streak with Widowmaker, and listening to the Team Fortress 2 team going, okay, who's going to counter snipe? Who's going to shut this down? and no one really wanted to volunteer for that job. The Blizzard team, by the way, were very, very good at the game. It's not surprising. They have an almost I call it a pseudo team house environment where they have computers and they playtest pretty much every day apparently. So it's no surprise that they are actually pretty damn good at the game they made.